This is PIX on Politics with Dan Manarino.
All right, everybody, welcome to PIX on Politics. I'm Dan Manarino, and let's get into it. It's the talk of the city and the state for the past month, New York City's finances. A budget crisis Mayor Mamdani compared to the Great Recession. A gap he originally pinned at $12 billion now sits at about half that. The mayor this week delivering an ultimatum, though, that he feels forced into. Listen.
There are two paths to bridge this gap. The first is the most sustainable and the fairest path. This is the path of ending the drain on our city and raising taxes on the richest New Yorkers and the most profitable corporations. And if we do not go down the first path, the city will be forced down a second, more harmful path. We would have to raise property taxes.
That idea did not go over well with pretty much anyone. Later on, you're going to hear New Yorkers' opinions on the proposal, but even the city's top money guy, City Controller Mark Levine, is not on board. I spoke to him on the PIX 11 Morning News earlier this week. Listen. Let's start with property taxes. Do you think that's the wise move?
No, I don't. Property taxes in New York are incredibly unequal. Actually, a brownstone owner in Park Slope pays a lot less than a brownstone owner in, say, East New York. So to add more taxes onto that unequal system is unacceptable. We should not be doing that.
So many leaders are echoing the controller's opinion, and as we've seen many times already, Governor Kathy Hochul remains steadfast in her promise to not raise taxes. So to help break down the mayor's budget and what's really at stake for New Yorkers is Andrew Rein. He's the president of the city's Budget Commission, and he is going on the record. Andrew, great to have you here. Great to talk to you once again about such an important topic to New Yorkers.
Thank you for having me.
So it's been quite the journey, right? So you just heard me kind of lay it all out with the $12 billion. A few days later in Albany, that number was half, and we're even a little bit lower than that now, about $5 billion. What do you make of all of the numbers that have kind of been thrown out the last couple of weeks?
The reality is the mayor has adjusted his estimates, first because tax revenues were higher and a couple of other things. But no one should look at that reestimation and say we don't have a problem. We do. We have a significant budget problem. It will not magically go away. He needs to take deliberate action to close that. Now, it was reduced from 7 to 5.4 with the governor stepping up, but he still has to close the rest of that gap.
So when we talk about a budget deficit, there are these huge numbers that often get thrown around, right? And at first people are like, oh, it's a scare tactic to kind of get what you want in terms of your agenda. But this is a pretty massive one. So how do you get into this problem to begin with?
A lot of people look at the prior administration's under budgeting as the cause. It actually wasn't the cause. It masked the problem but did not cause the problem. And it's certainly not revenue problems because our revenues are coming in hand over fist. We're doing great. What has happened is we've layered on programs, we've expanded programs, some of these very good, but we haven't exercised the political will to make them affordable by going into the city budget, identifying lower priority spending that's not improving New Yorkers' lives, and getting rid of it and making government more efficient. That's what we need to do. We should have done it before, but that's the solution now.
Well, that sounds like a no-brainer, Andrew. I mean, right? Doesn't it sound? That sounds like a task that should have happened in every administration. They just don't do it. So here we are with this problem now, and so the mayor kind of gives this ultimatum: raise the taxes on the wealthy or raise property taxes. Are either of those a good option?
Frankly, this is a false choice. We should not be raising. We should not be doing his preferred option of raising taxes on personal income taxes and business taxes, and the governor said no. And he has said his only option is to raise property taxes and dip into reserves, both unwise. Frankly, what should be the option, that's why it's a false choice, what should be the option is going into those agencies, identifying spending that's not improving New Yorkers' lives, and fixing the inefficiencies that are there. He signed an executive order on your show to do just that. That's where his primary focus needs to be.
So are you saying hold off on these choices, hold off on putting the pressure on lawmakers to do something, and wait, because he gave them 40 days to go about that?
Yes. It is a false choice. He should be focused on that, but he needs to be much more ambitious. He should be just as audacious and ambitious about focusing government, making it efficient, and delivering and being cost effective as he is about making New York affordable. If he does that, he can close this budget gap, improve services, and make sure that those services are affordable not only for New Yorkers today, but they'll be there in the future.
So I'm just curious, because we kind of hear this idea of raising taxes, raise the tax on the wealthy, not only in New York, but around the country. So from his standpoint, from a Democratic, socialist, progressive mayor, isn't that kind of fitting the agenda?
No, I understand that as part of the agenda, but as mayor of a local government, we are in fierce competition with other places for people and for businesses. We need people who are going to come here and pay the taxes that support our teachers, fires, sanitation workers. We need the businesses who create and hire jobs and hire New Yorkers. We are in a fierce competition. We're already the highest tax jurisdiction in the country. Yeah. To raise those taxes risks us being unattractive to those constituents.
So I hear you, right? And that is often what people say. Is that a fear, a real fear? Meaning, would people, if the taxes go up, would they actually leave?
Here's the thing. The polemics of the argument saying, oh, everyone's going to jump ship and leave tomorrow is ridiculous. Yeah. It's just not the case. But we are chipping away at our competitive foundation. Our share of the nation's millionaires has shrunk dramatically. If that share had stayed constant, we have $3 billion more in revenue today. Think about how that would close over half this gap. For publicly traded companies, the headquarters, we lost 41 of those headquarters between 2020 and 2025, while Texas and Florida gained 60 and 70 of those headquarters. We're chipping away at our foundation. That has long-term deleterious effects.
So when I asked the mayor, when he was here signing that executive order, I said to him, can you identify some of the areas maybe? He named this AI kind of robot thing that was $500,000. Do you have some suggestions?
You got to look at the big ticket items and also go in, like that executive order says, with a scalpel. Big ticket, he should be going to Albany asking for relief from the class size reduction mandate. That relief would allow him to manage the school system better and save $1 billion. We should be adjusting school funding, not only when enrollment goes up, when enrollment goes down, $400 million. We should finally fix our broken procurement reform system, and that would save $400 million. And then those savings officers should actually go into all the agencies and fund it, because there are inefficiencies and low impact programs marbled throughout. Unless you get inside, and I know that from personal experience, unless you get inside, you're not going to find it. That's the task at hand.
Yeah, I mean, that was something that also the comptroller mentioned. He said, the population of students has gone below a million, but it's still being budgeted as if it was the 1.1 million.
Exactly. We lost 100,000 students, yet when schools shrink from 500 to 400, we give them the same money. It doesn't make sense.
Okay. So, you seem you just named them like boom, 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 boom. Have you had conversations with the administration kind of giving them your viewpoint? Because you're a vital part of this kind of equation that's being put together.
Listen, we are always in good contact and always have good relationships. Different people have different priorities. Here's the thing. His priority is to make government work for people. He ran on that platform. He feels very strongly about it. Who better than someone who believes government should work than to make it efficient, focused, and excellent?
Help me understand something that is often said, right? And that is the governor said, I'm not for raising taxes. The city council speaker said, I'm not for raising property taxes, right? So it kind of sounds like he's not going to get what he wants, whatever avenue he goes. But also I'd said to the mayor, if the governor gives you money and it gets you to where you need to be, is that a good enough solution? And he said it's a short-term fix. Is it?
He's right, actually, that we need structural fixes. Because if we just kick the can down the road and have to come back again and again, the people actually suffer with their services. So we need structural fixes, which is why you want to right-size our spending, which is dramatically increased. You want to right-size that so it is sustainable over time. There's always a budget negotiation between the mayor and the council, the mayor and the governor. The mayor and the governor have been strong partners, as has the mayor and the council speaker. What we hope at the end of the day, with a chorus of people saying there's ways to fix government from inside, that's the focus.
Right, but I'm saying, like, if she comes out and says, I will give you $5 billion this year, or whatever it may be. She already gave him 1 point something. Can that fill the reserve, and plus the inefficiencies, would it get you where you need to be?
Here's the thing. A one-shot in our budget parlance. One shot's just kick the can down the road and we have the problem again. The other thing is she needs to remember, as she knows, she's running for re-election. Her plan is to be managing that budget in a few years. They're okay now in their finances. They have a $15 billion structural budget gap that the state has to close. She has to be very concerned about the state's finances. She has stepped up significantly, but she needs to look to the future for all of us New Yorkers.
Can you explain the reserves to me, right? Because he says he wants to go into the reserves, deplete them to kind of fill some of this. Controller says that's a terrible idea. What's the reserve for?
We have 3 pots of reserves. We don't need to go into detail of all of them. Let's think about the recessionary reserves. We have $2 billion. In an average recession, we probably need $11 billion over 2 years of revenue loss. We only have $2 billion now. He wants to take half of that to close this budget gap. That is actually putting at risk our ability to protect New Yorkers during the next recession. Furthermore, he says we're going to pay it back, But when you look at when we're going to pay it back, the budget's already in deficit in his financial plan. So we really need to protect and, frankly, build those reserves.
Okay, Andrew, you are a wealth of knowledge, kind of laying it all out. Thank you for explaining all of it and breaking it down. We'll keep the conversation going, okay?
Thanks for having me.
All right, everybody, the 2026 midterms are the talk of the political sphere, but there's a special election in just a couple months that could turn Congress on its head. So next up, the surprise candidate hoping to hold Governor Sherrill's vacated seat for the Dems. I'm joined by Analilia Mejia right after a quick break.
You're watching PIX on Politics with Dan Manarino.
And welcome back to PIX on Politics, everybody. So another busy week. Here are the big political headlines of the week in case you missed it, okay? An appellate court clearing the way for the redrawing of New York's 11th congressional district. That seat currently held by Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis. It's the only red congressional seat in New York City. So a panel rejecting the Republicans' appeal. Now they hope the Supreme Court can step in to stop the creation of some new lines. A recent ruling claims the current district illegally excludes Black and Latino voters. Mayor Mamdani getting closer to deliver on a major campaign promise to freeze the rents. He appointed 5 new members of the Rent Guidelines Board this week and reappointed 1. The board meets once a year to determine if rents can be raised. Rents have been frozen 3 times, all under former Mayor Bill de Blasio. And federal money once again flowing. This is big for the Gateway Tunnel project for now. The Trump administration appealing that decision, but has followed a court order to send funds in the meantime. Governor Hochul calling workers to deliver the news.
Hi, Guido. Kathy Hochul here. You're going back to work.
Thank God. Great job, Governor. We heard all about it. We are all going back. All my employees will be super excited.
And so the Gateway Tunnel project, likely a big topic on the campaign trail this spring, right? A special election for New Jersey's 11th congressional district, the seat once held by now Governor Mikey Sherrill, happening on April 16th. And Analilia Mejia pulled off an upset win in the Democratic primary. She's backed by more progressive Dems like Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Senator Bernie Sanders. Now she is tasked with keeping the seat blue for the House with a near even split and a critical midterm season ahead. Joining me now is the Democratic nominee for NJ11, Analilia Mejia. So great to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Of course. Let's talk. First off, congratulations on the win. You know, and I say upset win because many people thought Tom Malinowski, the powerhouse Democrat who had been there before, was going to win. And so when you kind of saw what was happening the night of and then in the days after, and now you being the Democratic nominee, what were you thinking about just kind of where you see the party going?
Well, one, I wasn't surprised. We had worked very hard over the course of 10 weeks to connect with voters, to knock on doors. We, in fact, talked to thousands of people and were able to, on election night, deliver a victory for progressive values, for bold ideas, and trying to rebuild the Democratic Party in a moment which we feel in crisis. I think my primary election shows that when you connect with voters, when you talk about the issues that keep people up at night, people turn out. We had a higher turnout than was expected in an otherwise sleepy Thursday race in the middle of winter.
Yeah, in a special election. You expect low voter turnout for a special election. I want to talk about just kind of how you describe yourself. I spoke to now your Republican opponent, Joe Hathaway, and he often called you a Democratic socialist, a member of the DSA. Do you consider yourself a Democratic socialist?
Well, one, as I keep saying, I have teenage sons, and when they don't have a good argument to make, they devolve to name calling. I will point out that I have been a Democratic County Committee woman in my district for about 13 years. I've worked really hard to build the Democratic Party. I've worked for President Biden. I have supported and helped run the campaign of Senator Bernie Sanders. I'm the kind of Democrat who gets down in the trenches, talks to people, and now I'm running for Congress so that I could represent the interest of working families.
So not a Democratic socialist?
No, as I said, I belong to the Democratic Party.
So let me talk about immigration for a moment. It's a big issue, specifically in the district as well. And there's a lot of confusion over the Homeland Security just this week announcing the purchase of this warehouse in Roxbury to turn it into an immigration detention center. Then they said the announcement was actually made in error. What did you make of all of that? Before getting into immigration issues?
I mean, I think when you look at all of the issues that are emanating from ICE and DHS, it's sadly many, many errors. I think that what we are experiencing right now, what we're seeing across the country, is incredibly egregious. It, in fact, motivated people to turn out in my race, and I suspect it will be a motivating factor in these midterm elections.
Should ICE as a whole because of what's happening around the country. Should it be abolished?
I believe that ICE needs to be abolished. I believe that we cannot reform an agency that already, it's very clear, has a recruitment problem, has a training problem, has an accountability problem, and is breaking the law. The reality is that in the United States, we have due process and equal protection, and ICE agents, DHS agents are breaking that for both immigrants and citizens alike.
But right now it does exist, right? So how do you see, if you were to become a member of Congress, how do you see yourself protecting immigrant rights? Is there anything that you could do on the federal level to stop some of the deportations from happening?
So first and foremost, it's about actually protecting all of our rights, because I think when you look at what happened in Minnesota, it's not just immigrants who are under attack. I believe that we need to claw back the $75 billion that the Republican Party and that this administration stole from the American people, from safety net programs like Medicaid, SNAP, et cetera. I believe that we need to stop the incredible data collection and surveillance that is happening right now. Many agents are taking pictures of individuals protesting, taking their driver's licenses, images, and we have no idea what's happening with that information. Finally, I also believe that we need to address the issue of qualified immunity. The reality is that as long as agents believe that they have full immunity, they're going to act with impunity. And this is a problem not only for immigrants, but for everyone in the United States.
You mentioned the name calling, so I want to get to a couple of things that your opponent has kind of hurled your way and give you a chance to respond to them in the interest of fairness. One of them being that when it comes to law enforcement as a whole, which kind of goes with this ICE issue, that your only thought is to defund the police. Are you in favor of funding or defunding the police?
Actually, as I just stated, these are comprehensive problems that can't be flattened with name calling and ridiculousness. As I shared, when it comes to ICE, we need to protect our constitutional rights, we need to protect American citizens, and we need to create a pathway for us to integrate new Americans into our country. When it comes to public safety, I'm a mom. I'm raising 2 boys, and I'm very conscious of the fact that we want to live peacefully in our communities. We want to have equity and justice. We all deserve the kind of system that sees all of us as full human beings. That is what I advocate for. And I think it's silly to reduce very complex ideas into small snippets or name calling. But again, this is politics, and sometimes people devolve.
Yeah, I mean, that is the name of the game, right?
Yes. Well, that's the traditional name of the game, but I think Americans are really hungry for something different. They want the issues that keep them up at night to be addressed, to be taken seriously, and for everyone to have the freedom to live justly in this nation.
You know, you campaigned on a number of issues, but if you go to Capitol Hill, what is the #1 issue you see facing your district in particular on day one that you would want to tackle?
I mean, I think across the board, the biggest issue we face is the outsized power that big money has in our economy and in our democracy. What you see is the flooding, which you saw in this race, the flooding of special interest groups into elections so that they could confuse voters, so that they could detract on the real issues and even silence opposition. I believe that from the highest level of our government, sadly, this administration takes gifts from different countries, is essentially using the position to self-enrich, and this is harming the American people.
But how does that affect the families who are having trouble putting money or food on the table?
It affects us tremendously, because when you think about the additional consolidation of power in government and how lobbyists are using their access to curtail guardrails that then lead to higher prices for individuals, that then lead to monopolies that create unfair advantages for corporations and disadvantaged families. That's why we have such rising prices in healthcare, in housing, in food, why we have such economic instability, not only for the working class, but for the middle class. We have to do something about it, and it starts by centering people, not lobbyists, not special interest groups.
Okay, we're going to leave it there. I know the special election is in April, so hopefully we talk to you along the way before that, okay?
Yes, I would love it.
Thank you so much for coming in person.
Thank
Good
you.
to talk to you. And you can see my interview, by the way, with the Republican candidate in this race, Joe Hathaway, on pix11.com/politics and streaming on Pix11+. Up next, it's a conversation not ending anytime soon. We're talking about New York City's budget. And now we want to hear from you. We're hitting the streets as New Yorkers sound off on the possibility of a potential property tax hike. We'll be right back. So it's an announcement that set off a storm throughout the city and up to Albany, right? We were talking about it. Mayor Mamdani saying the city will be forced to raise property taxes by nearly 10% if the state continues to refuse to tax the wealthy. So how do New Yorkers feel about the proposals? Well, we hit the streets to find out.
His talk about maybe raising property taxes this week. I was wondering if you had any thoughts.
I don't own any property.
Is he handling it right?
That's a tough one. I know a lot of people who own their own homes who are having a very tough time making ends meet.
Property taxes this week. I don't know if you saw it or.
No, I don't have no house. I mean, I don't have to worry about.
Do you want him to tax the millionaires though?
Well, they can take it. You know.
He should tax people who are rich. Before he came to as a mayor, like before he came.
Yeah.
So he talks about some like taxing rich people to make average people life easier.
He needs to stick to that.
Huh?
He needs to keep that promise.
Definitely.
He said he may have to raise property taxes. What do you think?
Property tax?
Yeah, he said he may have to raise the property
I
tax.
have no property, nothing. Doesn't make any sense for me. Only rich guy, you know, who have lots of property houses.
Yeah.
I think the mayor is awesome. You know, he's trying to do everything to help the homeless, you know, fill in the gaps, you know, that we have.
So he's doing the best he can.
Yes, he's doing the best he can.
I want to talk about him.
Why not?
No, because module, like, I feel like New York is messed up right now. How about that?
So no property tax increase.
Crap.
All right. Thank you for sounding off, and thank you to Henry for doing that. And it's sure to be a battle that will play out with plenty of fireworks. We'll stay with it every step of the way. In the meantime, we'll be right back. And looking ahead to next week, President Trump set to deliver his State of the Union address on Tuesday. We will have full coverage streaming on PIX 11+. I'll be there breaking down the big takeaways from the speech and, of course, the Democratic response as well. So stay tuned for PIX 11+ for those details. In the meantime, thank you for watching another episode of PIX on Politics. I'm Dan Manarino. Enjoy the rest of your day.